What's going on YouTube? Gonna do the second video about conquest to happiness right here. I apologize for the poor video quality, but you'll just have to bear with me. So the last video we talked about what makes an unhappy life. This video we're gonna talk about what makes a happy life according to Bertrand Russell. Again, one of the greatest philosophers of our last century. He had written over 30 books. Widely regarded as one of the greater American philosophers, with Henry David Thoreau, Walt Whitman, Ralph Waldo Emerson, just to name a few names. So, I wanted to talk about this idea we have of what makes a happy life, of I'm going to read some verses in this book, right out of the book, that I felt. The parent who genuinely desires a child's welfare more than his or her power over the child will, if sufficiently intelligent, not need textbooks on psychoanalysis to say what should and should not be done, will be guided aright by impulse. And in that case, the relation of parent and child will be harmonious from first to last, causing no rebellion in the child and no feeling of frustration in the parent. But this demands on the part of the parent from the first a respect for the personality of the child. A respect must be not merely a matter of principle, whether moral or intellectual, but something deeply felt with almost mystical conviction to such a degree that possessiveness and oppression become utterly impossible. So what does this exactly mean? So, a lot of times, I can speak from my own experience, my parents wanted me to be a certain way, nothing ill will on their part, but their consciousness is where it's at. They wanted me to be a conformist, get a 9-to-5 job, have belief systems that are congruent with the narrow confines of society. And they never respected my individuality. They never respected my existential mind, my ability to form my own opinions and beliefs and my own positions through critical analysis and deduction. And it naturally created a sense of rebellion in me, I got kicked out of the house, practically homeless right now, and I'm happier than I've ever been. So you don't really need a lot of material possessions to be happy. In fact, I think if you are attached to material possessions, that can really serve as a source of unhappiness. So he says that the parent has to respect the individuality of the child. And not a lot of parents do, especially in the Western world where, again, he talks about that, and I'm paraphrasing, education for education's sake is rarely valued in society because if it doesn't yield a monetary value, such as philosophy or anthropology or the arts, then people don't want to study it, right? I mean, you see this all the time in education. When people go to school, I'm going to pick on business, but I'm not saying that every business major is like this, but I'm saying, as an example, kid goes, wants to get a degree in business administration because he wants a job. Isn't really passionate about business, but it's a means to an end. And a man that I really respect that can speak about this much more eloquently than I can is Osho. talking about the fallacy of means to ends. So you should check that video out. Well, also, like back to Bertrand Russell, he says the primitive root of the pleasure of parenthood is twofold. On the one hand, there is a feeling of part of one's own body externalized, prolonging its life beyond the death of rest of one's body, and possibly in its turn externalizing part of itself in the same fashion, and so securing the immortality of the germplasm. On the other hand, there is an intimate blend of power and tenderness. The new creature is helpless, and there is an impulse to supply its needs, an impulse which gratifies not only the parent's love towards the child, but also the parent's desire for power. So long as the infant is felt to be helpless, the affection which is bestowed upon it does not feel unselfish, since it is in the nature of protection to a vulnerable portion of oneself. But from a very early age, there comes to be a conflict between love of parental power and the desire for the child's good. For while power over the child is just to a certain extent decreed by the nature of things, it is nevertheless desirable that the child should, as soon as possible, learn to be independent in as many ways as possible, which is unpleasant to the power impulse of a parent. So that's very interesting. So like in this country specifically, you see this problem right now, that and especially in like upper middle class suburban life, you see that the parent provides almost exclusively for the child. Maybe the kid's got a part-time 10, 15 hour a week job, but the car is paid for, the cell phone bill is paid for, food is paid for. Sometimes there's even a monthly allowance, a cash allowance given to these kids, and part of that is the parent feels like love for the kid, doesn't want the kid to go through the pain that maybe he or she had to go through of maybe not coming from as much money as this child has come from. So the parent then softens the kid up, doesn't let the kid harden up and face the harsh realities of life. But there's also a power struggle here too, right? Because those gifts, that generosity, although part of it is love, part of it is power, part of it is leverage. Well, now you have to do what I say, because if you don't, I'll pull the phone, I'll pull the car, I'll pull the monthly allowance, I'll pull all the subsidies that I'm giving to you. So and at that stage of being 16, 17, 18, even up in the early 20s, is a stage where the kid is starting to realize who he is, starting to form his own beliefs. And a lot of those beliefs are going to be generations different, of course. The beliefs are going to be different from the parent. So in many ways, subconsciously, this is a ploy. This is an agenda. This is a strategy for the parent to maintain that power, that impulse of power and control in the child. So if you want to be happy, and you're 18 to 23, whatever, young adult in our society, you have to have the courage. What's one of the virtues the Greeks talks about? You have to have the courage to resist that temptation. It's tantalizing, isn't it? Free car, free phone, living at home, free food, free rent. It's a lot. But you never really begin to understand who you are. Jesus fucking Christ. Sorry about that. Hey, this is live, raw. This isn't a scripted video, so yeah, I'm a little rough around the edges, but that's all right. But you never learn about how to really make it on your own in this world, and that's a growing problem. I mean, I myself dealt with that a little bit, but the day came for me when I decided I was going to give everything back. I gave the car back. I paid for my phone. I got a shitty car, and I'm, doing what I need to do to be independent. But that's a source of great unhappiness for a lot of people, is that they don't have the autonomy they desire because they're being subsidized by a leverage deal. Trying to see what else I highlighted here. So about work. Fear for others is only a shade better than fear for ourselves. Moreover, it is very often a camouflage for possessiveness. It is hoped that by rusing their fears, a more complete empire over them can be obtained. This, of course, is one of the reasons why men have liked timid women, since by protecting them, they came to own them. And on the whole, this is very profound. Women, so let's hold it like this. Women tend to love men for their character, while men tend to love women for their appearance. Isn't that interesting? You know, my grandfather told me this funny quote once. He said, "Women marry men hoping that they will change, and men marry women hoping that they'll never change, and they both don't get what they want." So, you know, oftentimes in our society we have, well, why is it that I'm a guy and I go up to a girl and, you know, she gets intimidated and why do I always have to be the initiator as a male? Why can't a woman come up to me and initiate? I'm a good looking guy, right? Well, this is not, it would be wrong to bash women here. Because see, women are not at fault. It is society that has conditioned them to be like this. It is society that has told women it is unattractive to show, you know, to initiate interest in men. Russell even talks about that. So, you know, before you go out and try to castigate women and throw them, you know, throw them to the curb, so to speak, really ask yourself, why are they like this? You know, did this male-dominated society maybe condition them to be like this? I think if you think long and hard about that, you'll come to a different conclusion than you would before this video. It is affection received, not affection given, that causes this sense of security, though it arises most of all from affection which is reciprocal. Strictly speaking, it is not only affection but also admiration that this has effect. Persons who trade is to secure public admiration, such as actors, preachers, speakers, and politicians, come to depend more and more upon applause. When they receive their due meed of public approbation, their life is full of zest. When they do not, they become discontented and self-centered. This diffused good will of a multitude does for them what is done for others by the more concentrated affection of the few. The child whose parents are fond of him accepts their affection as a law of nature. He does not think very much about it, although it is of great importance to his happiness. He thinks about the world, about the adventures that come his way, and the more marvelous adventures that will come by his way when he has grown up. But behind all these external interests, there is the feeling that he will be protected from disaster by parental affection. The child, this is important, the child from whom for any reason parental affection is withdrawn is likely to become timid and unadventurous, filled with fears and self-pity, and no longer able to meet the world in a mood of gay exploration. Such a child may set to work at a surprisingly early age to meditate on life and death and human destiny. He becomes an introvert, melancholy at first, but seeking ultimately the unreal consolations of some system of philosophy or theology. The world is a higgledy place, containing things pleasant and things unpleasant in haphazard sequence. and the desire to make an intelligible system of pattern out of it, at bottom, an outcome of fear. In fact, a kind of agoraphobia, or dread of open spaces. Within the four walls of the library, the timid student feels safe. If he can persuade himself that the universe is equally tidy, he can feel almost equally safe when he has to venture forth into the streets. Such a man, if he had received more affection, would have feared the real world less, and would not have to invest in an ideal world to make its place in his beliefs. So again, this is talking about the family. A lot of happiness and unhappiness is a direct extension of our families of origin. A lot of us try to deny this. Say, well, I created my own happiness, or I did nothing to do with my family. Bullshit. Don't be a fucking con artist. Be honest with yourself, for Christ's sake. So a lot of us did not receive a lot of affection from our parents, and so we go out and we have this void, and we try to fill this void with alcohol, with drugs, with sex, with money, with power, with prestige, or what Bertrand Russell was talking about. We try to find some idealized system of philosophy or theology to try to fill that void, and the reality is that it can't be filled. It has to be filled with love. And I'm going to leave you with this. What Bertrand Russell talks about, and he says, the happy man is the man who lives objectively, who has free affections and wide interests. Sorry. Battery here is a little screwed up, but come on, charger. If you're out there, don't get a Samsung Galaxy. Major problems with them. Just wanted to throw that out there. Okay. The happy man is the man who lives objectively, who has free affections and wide interests. Through those interests, The happy man is the man who lives objectively, who has free affections and wide interests, who secures his happiness through these interests and affections, and through the fact that they in turn make him an object of interest and affection to many others. To be the recipient of affection is a potent cause of happiness, but the man who demands affection is not the man upon whom it is bestowed. The man who receives affection is, speaking broadly, the man who gives it, but it is useless to attempt to give it as a calculation, in the way in which one might lend money at interest, for a calculated affection is not genuine, and is not felt to be so by the recipient. What then can a man who is unhappy because he is encased in self? So long as he continues to think about the causes of his unhappiness, he continues to be self-centered, and therefore does not get outside of the vicious circle. If he is to get outside of it, it must be genuine interest. If his trouble is self-pity, he can deal with it in the same manner after first persuading himself that there is nothing extraordinarily unfortunate in his circumstance. If fear is his trouble, let him practice exercises designed to give courage. Courage in war has been recognized from time immemorial as an important virtue, and a great part of training of boys and young men who have devoted to producing a type of character capable of fearlessness in battle. But a moral courage and intellectual courage have been much less studied. They also, however, have their technique. Admit to yourself every day at least one painful truth. You will find this quite as useful as the Boy Scouts' daily kind action. Teach yourself to feel that life would still be worth living, even if you were not, as of course you are, immeasurably superior to all your friends in virtue and intelligence. Only what genuine interests you can be of any use to you. but you may be pretty sure that genuine objective interest will grow up as soon as you have learned not to be immersed in self. So what he's saying is you got to get out of yourself. You got to get out of your fucking head. If you're unhappy, stop trying to find the causes of your unhappiness. I mean, the family of origin is important. You know, I talk about that a lot in this video, but that's not the be all end all. The be all end all is you have to find something that generally interests you and immerse yourself in that. And in doing so, that gets you outside of yourself. Now, that doesn't mean that you can just turn a blind eye to your family of origin or your causes of your unhappiness. I mean, you have to deal with that. You have to face that. But thinking that the buck stops there is a fallacy. You have to find what generally interests you and immerse yourself in that. You know, and I try to relate. I try to be really personal with you guys on here. You know, I try to put a personality to the video you're seeing. You know, I had a lot of problems growing up with my family. You know, I was probably I would be the caricature of me would be of the black sheep. You know, the rebel, the misunderstood one. But, and I have a lot of problems still to this day with my family, you know, never really felt accepted. But I've reached a point where I don't need their respect. You know, I don't need their admiration. I find it with other people that I choose to be in my life. And that what gives me great pleasure is immersing myself in what interests me, and for me that's philosophy, anthropology, dogs, working out, health, relationship building, right? Like those are the things that I like to do. You know, he talks there about intellectual courage and emotional courage, and how that's not valued in our society. And many times that can be cultivated through education, if the person is choosing the right path in education. But as we know, most people don't know what they want, and the worst thing that one can do is be good at the wrong thing. I think Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, multi-billionaire, said that. So you have to find what truly interests you. If you don't find that, you're going to be miserable, and you're going to be obsessed with self-pity. You know, why am I unhappy? Why did I get fired from that job? Why am I not in the relationship I want to be? Those are going to be on the forefront of your mind. People will eventually not want to talk to you because all that you really want to talk about is yourself. And you become sort of a narcissist that way. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but that's I had to face that within my own self, you know. You know, I was if we focus more on what we're interested in, we naturally lose sight of why we're unhappy, because we become happy immersing ourselves in what truly interests us. So, you know, and he talks about this in the book. I know this video is a little bit longer than I usually make them, but I think it is an important video. He talks about this idea of self-resignation, right? This idea that, you know, in the Western world, it's frowned upon because, you know, if you put on your resume, you know, worked a 9-to-5 job as a payroll specialist, some bullshit fucking job that nobody, you know, I wouldn't, sure as hell wouldn't want. I don't really think anybody wants. I think people, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? They settle for those kind of jobs, you know, and it's just temporary, and then that turns into 5 years. happens a lot more than you think. But anyways, so those kind of, you work that, and then there's a 2-year gap where maybe you lived on a monastery, maybe you apprenticed under a guru, because you really wanted to find yourself, because you really wanted to allow yourself to be true to yourself. And you didn't really know what you wanted to go to school for, and you know that you picked the wrong major, and you don't want to pick the wrong career, and you don't want to pick the wrong mate. And so you're trying to find out who you are. You're trying to find the truth, the universal truth. And so you embark upon a path of self-resignation. You become a hermit. You become an apprentice to a guru. In our society, there's something called opportunity cost. And opportunity cost essentially means the amount of money that you would have made in the time that you spent doing something else. So for instance, say you're making 40 grand a year and you take a 2-year leave of resignation. Society will look at that and say that's a stupid idea because you just lost out on $80,000. But again, the Western society is not a society that really produces enlightenment. It is and I'm not trying to hate on it. There is some good. There's been great, advancements in medicine and engineering and technology. I mean, that can't be overlooked. But we're not talking about that here. We're talking about enlightenment and self-transcendence, and that is not. It's not a society that really cultivates an environment that's healthy for that. It's a profit-generated economy. What can you do for the society? What can you produce? Produce efficiency. And it's insanity, right? Because we look at everything as a face value for money. What are you going to go to school for? Philosophy? Well, what the fuck are you going to get a job doing that? See, that attitude right there is the attitude and the mindset of a very, very weak mind, of a very average at best mind, a mind that should never ever be in a position to counsel somebody, because that is someone who I don't want to be presumptuous, but most likely is someone who's working a job you don't really like. And they're jealous of anybody, and they probably won't even admit this to themselves, who's doing something that they do like. Who do you want to be? Who do you want to model yourself after? Joe Schmo, who's a payroll specialist, or an HR manager, or a customer service representative? Do you want to do that? Is that who you are? Well, it's a means to an end. No, it's not. Your time is short. I mean, Ty Lopez, he says, go read Seneca's Shortness of Time. I really believe you should read that book. It's a great book. Life is not short if we know how to use it. But people think that, people are so frugal with their money, but they're not frugal with their time. And they're wasting their time. In particular, their youth, their good years, on these shitty fucking jobs that they don't really want, thinking that they'll get them where they want to be, and it doesn't work that way. You have to be willing to go through fucking hell. And a lot of that hell, it comes in the form of scrutiny of others. You have to be strong enough not to listen to the opinions of your parents, and many times even your friends. Because if you don't want the 9-to-5 monotonous bullshit, sometimes you might be living in your car. Sometimes you might be living with very little money, until you are able to know what it is that you want to devote yourself to. I think society would be a much better place if everybody at the age of 18, instead of going right off to college, went and did a 2-year apprenticeship with a guru. Think about that. Think about I guarantee you'd have a whole lot less people going to business school. And med school for that matter. But I'm going to leave you with this. Let me find it here. This is kind of a deep way to end this, but all unhappiness depends upon some kind of disintegration or lack of integration. There is a disintegration within the self through lack of coordination between the conscious and the unconscious mind. There is lack of integration between the self and society, where the two are not knit together by the forces of objective interests and affections, meaning you don't agree with society. The happy man is the man who does not suffer from either of these failures of unity, whose personality is neither divided against itself nor pitted against the world. Such a man feels himself a citizen of the universe, enjoying freely the spectacle that it offers and the joys that it affords, untroubled by the thoughts of death, because he feels himself not really separate from those who will come after him. It is in such profound instinctive union with the stream of life that the greatest joy is to be found. I'm going to read that last line. It is in such profound instinctive union with the stream of life that the greatest joy is to be found. This is, the new age, right? This is oneness. This is the idea of self-transcendence, of non-duality. This idea of this is what my life mission is. This is what I'm most passionate about, is the idea of oneness, the idea of unity, the idea of non-duality. This is the greatest form of happiness when we realize that there is no beginning, there is no end. We are part of everything. We are energy. We are just energy. We are a spirit having a human experience. It is in such profound instinctive union with the stream of life that the greatest joy is to be found. Thanks for watching. I know the video was a little, it's homemade, this is live. I'm not editing this. I'm a real human being. I'm a real person. I'm just who I am. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll continue to make more. All right.